He was walking to class, then suddenly thrown against a wall and searched like a criminal, all because he fit the description. This isn't a crime story. It's a real story, a story of dignity lost in a school hallway, and how one student turned injustice into impact. Stay with me. This is a story you'll never forget. It was supposed to be just another Monday, the kind where the air still carried the laziness of the weekend, where students shuffled in with half-open eyes, sipping cheap coffee or biting into soggy breakfast sandwiches. Jefferson High buzzed with the usual noise, the echo of laughter bouncing off tiled walls, lockers slamming shut, sneakers squeaking on polished floors, teachers yelling last-minute reminders to hurry to homeroom. 17-year-old Malik Thompson moved calmly through the chaos, with a spiral notebook tucked under one arm and earbuds humming soft jazz in his ears. He looked like any other student, except maybe a little sharper, a little more focused. Malik wasn't one for drama or detours. A straight-A student, math team captain, and the son of a hard-working single mother, he carried the hopes of his family like a quiet badge of honor. He adjusted his hoodie and glanced at the digital clock. Above the main hallway, 7:51 a.m. He still had time to review his notes before his calculus quiz. Another step toward the scholarship he'd worked years for. Then came the voice. Sharp, commanding, cold. "Hey, you! Stop right there!" It cut through the hallway like a siren. Heads turned. Conversations froze. Malik pulled out one earbud and turned, startled. His eyes met Officer Granger, the school security officer, white, in his 40s, with a stiff posture and a face that rarely smiled. His dark uniform looked like it belonged more in a prison than a school. Everyone knew him. Some feared him. Malik had barely interacted with him before, until now. Granger was pointing directly at him. "You, backpack, against the wall, now." Malik blinked. "Me? I didn't do anything." Granger was already striding toward him, one hand on his radio, the other gesturing aggressively. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. You fit the description." Malik's heart skipped. Fit the description? Of what? Who? He glanced around. Eyes were on him now. Students standing still, whispering, a few pulling out their phones. He tried to stay calm. "Sir, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm on my way to class. I've got a math test in—" He didn't finish. Granger grabbed his arm, not a gentle grab, a yank. Malik's notebook dropped to the floor. His body was shoved up against the cool cinder block wall. The pressure on his back was sudden, hard, humiliating. His chest hit the wall. A grunt escaped his lips. "Face forward," Granger barked. "What are you doing?" Malik gasped, struggling to twist his neck to look. But the officer ignored him. In one rough motion, he ripped Malik's backpack off his shoulders and unzipped it. Books, pens, calculator, a crumpled brown paper lunch bag, all dumped onto the floor, scattered across the hallway tiles. It was happening, and Malik could feel the shift from student to suspect, from boy to threat. He heard the murmur of the crowd, the unmistakable beep of phones recording. Some students looked concerned, others just curious. No one said a word. Inside, Malik felt a cocktail of panic and rage boil up. Why me? What did I do? Why is no one stopping him? "Sir, please," Malik managed. "I haven't done anything wrong." "You were seen near the staff room," Granger snapped. "Teacher's phone went missing. That's all. I need—" Malik's eyes widened. He had walked past the staff room, yes, but he always did. It was next to the library, where he spent most mornings reviewing notes. That was routine, not a crime. "You're mistaken," Malik said, louder this time. "Check the cameras." "I was in the library. Ms. Patel saw me." Granger didn't respond. Instead, he pulled out Malik's pencil case, shook it, looked inside, and tossed it aside. His hands were all over Malik's belongings, like he was digging for treasure. All Malik could think about was his mother. What would she say if she saw this? What would she feel? Seeing her son treated like this, like he didn't matter? Then came the voice of a teacher, Ms. Hernandez, rushing over, her heels clicking fast on the floor. "Officer, what's going on here?" she asked, alarmed. "Suspicion of theft," Granger replied, barely glancing at her. "That's Malik Thompson," she said, her voice tense. "There must be a mistake." "He matches the description." Ms. Hernandez stepped closer. "I know this student. He's never been in trouble. I think we need to—" "I'm doing my job, ma'am," Granger cut her off. Malik remained silent. Now, teeth clenched. Not because he had nothing to say, but because he knew, at that moment, no one would listen. The hallway noise resumed, but it felt different now. Like it was happening behind glass, like he was watching himself from the outside. His books were on the floor. His name was being whispered. His dignity lay shattered next to his lunch. And all he had done was show up to school. Students began to gather, drawn by the tension like moths to a flame. What started as murmurs and curious glances quickly became a full-blown scene. Some stood frozen, stunned by the sight of Malik Thompson, the quiet, honor roll student, being treated like a common criminal. Others pulled out their phones and began recording. The cold, metallic click of phone cameras filled the hallway like quiet gunshots. Malik's chest rose and fell, each breath faster than the last. His voice cracked as he pleaded, "I didn't do anything. Please, sir, I have a math test in 5 minutes." But Officer Granger showed no reaction. His face was blank, unmoved, like he had done this 100 times before. Like Malik's words didn't matter. He crouched and picked up Malik's backpack again, this time roughly shaking it out, scattering every item onto the polished floor. Notebooks flopped open, pages fluttering like wounded wings. A neatly folded worksheet tore slightly at the edge. Malik's calculator clattered noisily, its back panel snapping off. His packed lunch, a sandwich wrapped in foil and a small box of juice, hit the floor and rolled toward a nearby locker. Students gasped, not because of what Granger found, there was nothing to find, but because of how he was doing it, like Malik was trash, like he didn't deserve decency. Granger stood over the mess, then turned and said loudly for all to hear, "This student is under suspicion of theft. A teacher's phone went missing this morning. He was seen near the staff room." Malik's fists clenched. He felt exposed, like he was naked in front of everyone, stripped of pride, stripped of humanity. "But I was in the library," he said, desperation climbing in his throat. "Ask Ms. Patel. She saw me." Granger didn't even look at him. "You were near the staff hallway. That's enough for me?" The words hit Malik like a slap. Enough for what? To drag him down? To ruin him? To Granger, his presence near a hallway was enough to justify this public shaming. And why? Malik knew. Everyone knew. But no one would say it out loud. A ripple of whispers flowed through the crowd of students. Names, jokes, assumptions. The kind that stick. "I thought Malik was the smart one. Bro probably stole it. Guess they're all the same in the end." Even the students who didn't believe the worst stayed silent. No one stood up for him. No one challenged the officer. And Malik couldn't blame them. He'd seen how things could escalate. He'd seen the viral videos of what could happen when black boys talked back. Then came a voice, sharp, feminine, out of breath. "What's going on here?" It was Ms. Lewis, a history teacher known for her no-nonsense style and fierce defense of her students. She pushed through the crowd, eyes darting from Granger to the mess on the floor to Malik's trembling frame. "Officer, what are you doing?" she demanded. "Following up on a report. Suspected theft," Granger replied stiffly. She looked at Malik. "Suspected? By who?" He was seen near the staff lounge. Teacher's phone went missing this morning. Ms. Lewis raised an eyebrow. So you assume this boy did it? Granger didn't flinch. He matches the description. And what description is that exactly? She asked, folding her arms. A tall black male in a hoodie. A pause. The words hung in the air, ugly and heavy. Ms. Lewis turned to Malik and asked gently, "Where were you this morning?" "In the library," Malik said quietly, ashamed even though he'd done nothing wrong. "Since 7:15, Ms. Patel let me in early so I could study for my test." Lewis nodded. "Let me go get her." But Granger raised his hand. "There's no need. He's not under arrest. This is just a routine check." Routine. That word echoed in Malik's head like a cruel joke. If this was routine, then what did that say about how the system saw him? What did it say about how many times boys like him had gone through this? The hallway was quieter now. Even the students filming seemed unsure of what they were watching. Some lowered their phones, some turned away, but Malik stayed still, back pressed against the wall, the sting of humiliation radiating from his skin like heat. He wasn't just being searched, he was being stripped of something he had worked years to build: trust, respect, dignity. No handcuffs were placed, no arrest was made, but the damage, the real damage, had already been done. In that hallway, surrounded by eyes that judged and mouths that stayed shut, Malik understood something painful. He wasn't presumed innocent. He wasn't given the benefit of the doubt. He was guilty before proven anything. And that truth, that injustice, would stay with him long after the bell rang. By noon, the school wasn't buzzing with math scores or class gossip. It was buzzing with one video. A shaky clip recorded by a sophomore named Tasha showed everything. Malik being slammed against the wall, his backpack dumped onto the floor, and Officer A. Granger barking accusations. No resistance, no aggression. Just a boy trying to go to class, pleading for his voice to be heard. The video hit social media fast. By early afternoon, it had gone viral. Not just within Jefferson High, but all across the city. Local Facebook groups, Instagram stories, TikTok clips, and even Twitter feeds were flooded with footage of the incident. The hashtags #Justice for Malik and #Hallway Humiliation were everywhere. Some students started duets and reactions on TikTok, voicing their disbelief and anger. The internet had seen it, and it was angry. Malik had gone home early, eyes heavy, shoulders slumped, his voice barely above a whisper. He didn't even touch the lunch his mother had packed. He didn't even turn on his music. The house felt heavy, like the silence was pressing on every wall. He sat on the couch, staring at the floor, replaying every moment in his mind like a broken movie reel. Then the call came. From the school's assistant principal. They had found the phone. It hadn't been stolen. No one had taken it. It had been sitting on a cluttered shelf in the teacher's lounge the entire time, right where Ms. Simmons, the teacher who reported it missing, had left it. There was no crime, no suspect, nothing to investigate. Malik had been telling the truth the whole time. But being right didn't feel like winning. When his mother, Danielle Thompson, got home from the hospital that evening, still in scrubs, exhausted from a 12-hour shift, she found Malik exactly where she had left him. He finally looked up and said, "They found the phone." She paused, confused. "What?" "They found it. No one stole it. It was just there." Danielle stared at her son, and something inside her broke. She had raised him to be respectful, focused, to walk the line carefully in a world that often judged him before knowing him. And still, this happened. She sat beside him and wrapped her arm around his shoulders, pulling him close. He didn't cry. He couldn't. He just sat there, as if his body had shut down to protect itself from the weight of it all. That night, Danielle recorded a video of her own. A calm, steady voice, a mother's voice, explaining what happened to her son. She didn't yell, she didn't curse, she just told the truth. My son, Malik Thompson, was profiled. He was humiliated in front of his peers. He was treated like a criminal for one reason, because of how he looks. He was walking to class. That's all. He's a kid. He's my kid. She posted the video to Facebook. Within hours, it had over 50,000 views. Local reporters picked it up. Civil rights activists in the city reached out. Jefferson High had just become the epicenter of a larger conversation. Meanwhile, at school, things were different. Yes, the school sent out a formal statement saying there had been a misunderstanding. Yes, Granger was under review. But no one apologized to Malik. No one looked him in the eye. The teachers who once praised his essays now avoided eye contact. Some students whispered behind his back, others tried to act like nothing had happened. But Malik felt it. The coldness, the stares, the invisible wall that had gone up around him. He no longer raised his hand in class. He sat at the back of the cafeteria. He didn't smile. He didn't joke. His math quiz score dropped. His voice was quieter. It wasn't just the hallway incident that hurt. It was what came after. The silence, the inaction, the way people moved on, while he was still stuck in that moment. Because humiliation lingers long after the cameras stop recording. One afternoon, his counselor called him in. "I just want to check on you," she said gently. "You've been quieter lately." Malik looked up slowly. "Wouldn't you be?" She didn't know how to answer that. At home, Danielle wasn't staying silent. She contacted a lawyer. She attended a school board meeting and stood up to speak. "What happened to my son is not just a mistake. It's a reflection of a system that doesn't see our children the same way. We demand accountability. We demand change." Some parents clapped. Others shifted uncomfortably. But the message had been delivered. Malik's story wasn't just about him anymore. It had become a symbol of how easy it was to tear someone down without proof, and how hard it was to rebuild the pieces afterward. The school's first reaction? Silence. No apology. No concern. No accountability. Just a short statement from the principal saying Officer Granger had followed protocol, but the community had seen the video, and they weren't staying silent. Within a day, the footage had been shared thousands of times. Parents were talking. Alumni were furious. Civil rights groups started reaching out. Jefferson High had never faced this kind of heat before. But now, they were at the center of a storm. People were outraged. That Friday afternoon, dozens of students staged a walkout. They stood outside the front steps of the school holding hand-painted signs. "Dignity is a right, not a privilege. Stop criminalizing our kids." Malik deserved better. Malik didn't join them at first. He was still processing the trauma, trying to hold himself together. But when he looked out the window from his math class and saw the sea of students, kids from every grade, some holding his name on signs, something shifted. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about all of them. Danielle Steps. In Malik's mother, Danielle Thompson, was no stranger to hard work. As a full-time nurse and single parent, she had spent years raising her son to be respectful, focused, and proud of who he was. But now, her child had been humiliated, not for something he did, but simply for who he was. She wasn't going to let it slide. Danielle filed a formal complaint against Officer Granger with the school board, demanding an investigation. She spoke out on local news channels with a calm but fierce voice that echoed in every living room across the city. We teach our kids to respect authority. But what do we do when authority abuses that respect? Her interviews went viral. Radio shows quoted her. Community leaders called her brave. And most importantly, her words lit a fire under the district leadership. The pressure builds facing growing media attention, daily protests, and rising anger from parents and advocacy groups. The school board had no choice. They announced that Officer Granger had been suspended pending investigation. It wasn't justice, but it was a start. Soon after, the principal invited Malik and his mother to a special school assembly where they offered him a public apology. Students filled the gymnasium. Teachers stood in the back, quiet and unsure of what to expect. The principal cleared his throat nervously and handed the microphone to Malik. All eyes turned to him. Malik's message. Malik stood tall. He wore a simple black hoodie, the same one he had on the day everything happened. The gym was silent. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. He looked down at the mic, then up at the hundreds of faces staring back. Some were supportive. Some were ashamed. A few looked like they wanted to disappear. And then Malik spoke. "I appreciate the apology," he said, voice steady. "But an apology doesn't erase the pain. It doesn't give me back the respect I lost in that hallway. It doesn't make the whispers stop. But maybe, just maybe, it makes someone in this room think twice. Think twice before judging someone because of how they look. Think twice before assuming guilt without proof. Think twice before staying silent. When something wrong is happening in front of you." The room stayed quiet for a moment, stunned. Then a single clap, then two. Then the entire gym was on its feet, a standing ovation. From pain to power, Malik walked off the stage not with revenge, but with resolve. He didn't just speak for himself. He spoke for every student who had been profiled, dismissed, or silenced. The journey wasn't over, but something had changed, because one voice, calm, steady, and truthful, had cut through the noise. And that voice, once crushed in a school hallway, was now echoing through an entire community. Malik's story didn't end in that hallway. What started as a moment of public humiliation turned into a citywide movement. People who had never heard of Jefferson High were now sharing posts, signing petitions, and showing up outside school board meetings demanding accountability. Malik's name, once whispered in the shadows of school hallways, now echoed through newsrooms, conference calls, and civic forums. At first, Malik didn't want the attention. He didn't ask to be a symbol. He didn't want interviews or hashtags. He just wanted to go to school in peace. But as days passed, and he watched other students, younger ones, quiet ones, kids who looked like him, walking through the same halls with fear in their eyes, he realized something. If he didn't speak up, nothing would change. If he didn't use his voice, someone else would suffer in silence like he had. So he stood up. It started with a town hall meeting organized by local parents and educators. Malik sat quietly for most of it, but when the mic was passed to him, he stood, cleared his throat, and began. "I was searched in a hallway like I didn't matter. I was treated like a suspect instead of a student. All I was doing was walking to class. You could hear a pin drop," he continued, his voice steady. "People ask why I didn't fight back, but I shouldn't have to fight to be seen as human. I shouldn't have to prove my innocence just because of the color of my skin. I did everything right, and still, it wasn't enough." The room erupted in applause, but Malik didn't speak for claps. He spoke for truth. That single speech sparked a ripple effect. Within a few weeks, Jefferson High implemented new policies, ones that should have existed long ago. A new rule was passed. No student could be searched or detained without clear, documented evidence and the presence of a school counselor or administrator. Security officers would no longer operate without oversight. The school district also partnered with racial equity organizations to implement mandatory anti-bias training for all staff from principals to part-time hall monitors. It was a victory, not just for Malik, but for every student who had ever felt unseen, unheard, or wrongly targeted. Malik finished his final semester with quiet determination. His grades, once shaken by the trauma of that day, began to recover. He returned to tutoring younger students after school, kept his head down, and worked through the noise. And when his college acceptance letter arrived in the mail, a large gold-embossed envelope from Howard University, he held it like it was more than just an achievement. It was proof that they hadn't broken him, that one hallway didn't define his future. But he didn't stop there. At Howard, Malik didn't just study political science. He became a voice, speaking at student-led town halls, joining youth justice groups, and starting a blog titled Voices in the Hallway. His first post told the full story of that day, raw, honest, and unapologetic. That blog turned into a podcast. That podcast turned into speaking gigs, and those speaking gigs turned into a mission. Today, Malik travels across the country, telling his story in auditoriums, on panels, and yes, even right here on YouTube. He speaks to students who've felt invisible. He speaks to parents who are scared for their children, and he speaks to educators and officers who still carry biases they won't admit to. Standing in front of hundreds of high schoolers, Malik often begins with one line. Dignity isn't something you earn. It's something you deserve. He pauses. Never let anyone take it from you. Not in a hallway, not in a classroom, not anywhere. You don't have to shout to be heard. But when you speak, speak truth. Those words have become a motto for many. They appear on posters, in tweets, and even carved into a mural at Jefferson High, painted by the very students who once stood frozen as Malik was searched. The mural shows a student standing tall, books in hand, back straight, facing a hallway flooded with light. At the bottom, in bold paint, the power of one voice. Malik Thompson's story isn't just about one boy. It's about a system, a silence, and the strength it takes to speak up, even when your voice shakes. He reminds us that one hallway can break you, or it can shape you into the kind of person who builds doors for others to walk through. If Malik's story moved you, if it made you think, or feel, or reflect, then don't let it end here. Hit that like button to support stories that matter. Drop a comment below. Your voice can inspire change too. And don't forget to subscribe for more real, powerful stories that need to be heard. Because together, we can turn silence into strength and stories into action.